Story 1. The narrow place. I remember the cold most of all. Not the outdoor cold, though it was late October and the wind came off the ridges sharp enough to cut, but the subterranean kind. The kind that clings to the skin long after you've left the cave. The kind that seeps in, slow and sure, until it feels like your bones are holding their breath. Owen had been talking about TWLLDDU for months. Said it wasn't on most maps. Said it was special. Not in a showy way. It's quiet, he told me once over a pint. Nothing down there but your own head. That's the scary part. I thought he was joking. He wasn't. We were 5, Owen, myself, Eric, who mostly kept to himself, Julia, and her younger brother Mark, a university student trying too hard to prove something. None of us were professionals, though Owen had done some more serious dives out in Derbyshire. I trusted him. He was the kind of guy who knew when to laugh and when to shut up. He hadn't steered me wrong before. We parked near the edge of an old sheep trail, walked half a mile through frost-glazed grass, and found the mouth by accident. Or maybe Owen didn't. It was just there, behind a wall of twisted hawthorn. A crack in the earth, half hidden by wet leaves and rust-colored moss. The entry was steep. I slid down last, my hands gripping rock slick with condensation. The air changed almost immediately, cooler, denser, and completely still. The others were already checking their gear. I switched on my headlamp and the beam caught in the mist, turning everything a hazy amber. The first few hundred feet were manageable. The tunnel sloped downward in gentle arcs, the walls close but not claustrophobic. Every sound seemed hushed. Breathing felt louder than it should have. No one said much. We paused at a junction. 2 narrow paths diverged. Owen nodded toward the left. That leads to the hollow, he said, adjusting his helmet. Not many have gone past it. Mark made a noise that might have been a laugh. What, are we chasing ghosts now? No, Owen replied, flatly. We're just walking. That was the last real conversation we had for a while. The tunnel narrowed. We took turns crawling through a passage no wider than a kitchen drawer. My suit caught on a sharp ridge and tore along the thigh, but I didn't feel it. Just rock against fabric. Then fabric against skin. It opened into a larger chamber, low-ceilinged, scattered with smooth stones like someone had arranged them deliberately. I stepped around them. Julia did too. Mark didn't. One of the stones rolled beneath his boot and clattered off into the dark. We all froze. Nothing happened. But I remember looking around and feeling, for the first time, that something had noticed us. We kept moving. No one said it out loud, but we were quieter than before. Even Mark. Owen led, Julia behind him. Then Eric. Then me. Mark brought up the rear. The tunnel sloped further downward now. Gravity encouraged us along. The only noise was the soft crunch of our boots and the rhythmic hum of headlamps. But even that started to feel wrong. It wasn't the sound itself. It was the way it echoed. Or didn't. I'd worked enough rescues to know how sound behaves underground. This cave was too quiet. No reverb. No delay. Just dead air. Owen stopped suddenly. There were prints in the mud. Fresh ones. Same boots as ours, but facing the wrong direction. As if someone had walked ahead of us, then turned back. I crouched beside one and pressed 2 fingers into the edge. Still wet. Maybe they doubled back, Julia said, uncertainly. No one else came in today, Owen murmured. We checked the sign-in at the ranger station. No one spoke for a moment. Then we moved on. At some point, the air got warmer. Only by a few degrees, but enough that I noticed the sweat under my collar. It didn't make sense. We were deeper now. Should have been colder. I asked Owen about it. Thermal vent, he offered. But he didn't sound convinced. The tunnel curved left, then again, steeper now. My knees started to ache. I was glad for the quiet, it kept me focused. But the quiet didn't last. We heard something ahead. Not loud. Just deliberate. A tap. Then another. Like stone on stone. We all stopped. Owen turned, his voice low. "Eric?" Eric shook his head. "Not me." "Mark?" "Nah." We waited. Nothing followed. Still, we didn't speak. Just nodded and moved on. 15 minutes later, I turned to check behind us. The tunnel was empty. "Where's Mark?" I asked. Owen stopped. Julia turned. He was just there. We called out, once. Then twice. No reply. Owen backtracked while we waited. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. Then Owen returned. Alone. No sign. No sound. Julia's face had gone pale. "He wouldn't just wander off," she said. "No," Owen agreed. "He wouldn't." Eric swore under his breath. We stood in a tight circle, each of us silently refusing to say what we were all thinking. We had a choice: go back and look for him, or push forward to the next chamber and circle back after. Owen thought the chamber might offer more visibility. I didn't disagree. But something gnawed at me. A faint pressure behind the ears. A sense that we were being listened to. Not watched, listened to. As we moved again, the air grew thick. Breathing took more effort. My lamp dimmed for just a moment. Just a flicker. But I saw something. A figure. Far down the tunnel. Just standing. I blinked and it was gone. I didn't mention it. Not then. Because part of me wondered, if I said it out loud, would it come back? I kept seeing his boots. That's what stayed with me at first, not Mark's face, or his voice, but the back of his boots. Mud-caked. One slightly more worn than the other. I'd glanced at them a dozen times in the last hour without thinking. Just the rhythm of footsteps behind me. Quiet, regular. And now they were gone. We didn't call out again. Not loudly. Just low, restrained murmurs, like speaking too loud might bring something else instead. The air had a strange weight to it, as if the cave had swallowed our noise whole. I could still feel the damp patch on my shoulder where Mark had brushed past me earlier, squeezing through a narrow bend. That closeness was fresh, but now, nothing. We reached the next chamber. It was wider than I expected, with a ceiling that arched high enough to stand fully upright. The headlamps scanned over it, and the shadows crawled with us. Owen moved toward the far end, sweeping his light across the rock. Eric lingered near the entrance, one hand resting against the wall. Julia was quiet. Her lips were pressed tight, and her jaw tensed like she was grinding her teeth. There were more footprints in the dust. Not Mark's. Bare. Human-shaped, but not quite right. The toes too long. The heels shallow. No tread. No direction. Just there. "I don't like this," Eric said quietly. Owen didn't respond. He was staring at the opposite wall. "Tom," he said. I walked over. Carved into the stone, deep but clean, was a line of text. Fresh, like it had been etched that morning. It read, "You left them." The letters weren't perfect, but they were deliberate. Rough lines. Uneven pressure. Still, it wasn't old. No mold. No wear. Julia leaned in, her voice low. "Is that some kind of joke?" No one answered. Because it wasn't. The silence stretched too long. I glanced at my watch, but the hands weren't moving. Battery dead. Or something else. I tapped the face. Nothing. Julia checked hers. Same. Owen had a compass clipped to his chest strap. He unclipped it and held it up. It spun slowly. Then faster. He let it drop back against his chest without saying anything. We decided to split up. Not far, just enough to scan the side tunnels branching off the main chamber. Eric took the left. Julia and I took the right. Owen stayed in the center, keeping watch. That was the plan. The tunnel Julia and I followed was low, the ceiling dipping so sharply we had to crawl. Our lamps cast long shadows over the stone, making everything feel stretched. She was quiet behind me. No complaints. Just focused breathing. I respected that. About 10 meters in, the tunnel ended. A flat wall. Featureless. But the temperature had risen again. A prickly warmth pressed in from all sides. And the smell. Faint, but distinct. Old metal. Like rusted pipe. Not blood. Just something, spent. We turned back. Halfway to the chamber, the tunnel opened slightly. Just enough to sit upright. That's when I noticed it. A soft clicking sound. Faint. Rhythmic. Julia leaned in. Is that? We listened. Click. Click. Click click click. Then silence. Then a whisper. Not words. Just shape. A breath with intention. I raised my hand, signaling her to stay still. The sound came again. Closer this time. Not behind us. Not in front. From the stone. Inside it. She grabbed my wrist. Hard. I didn't pull away. When it stopped, I exhaled without realizing I had been holding my breath. Back in the main chamber, Eric was already there. His face was pale. He looked at us, then away. I saw Mark, he said. Owen frowned. Where? Eric pointed toward the left tunnel. He was ahead of me. I called out, but he didn't answer. Just kept crawling. Couldn't have been him, Julia said. It was him, Eric replied. You're sure? I know what I saw. Owen hesitated. Did he have his headlamp? Eric paused. No. None of us said anything for a long moment. We rested. Drank water. Checked gear. No signal on the radios. Batteries steady, but the lamps looked dimmer. Or maybe it was the cave getting darker. That's when I noticed something else. My scarf. Red wool. Faded. A tear near the seam. I wore it tucked under my collar. Always did. A habit. But now it was gone. And in the dirt near my pack, folded neatly, was the scarf. Julia hadn't seen me take it off. No one had. Because I hadn't. I didn't touch it. Just stared. Owen crouched beside it. Picked it up. Held it out. You dropped this. No, I said. I didn't. He looked at me for a second, then set it down gently. Didn't say another word. Later, I walked to the edge of the chamber, where the wall curved slightly inward. I pressed my palm to the stone. It was warm again. Too warm. And the texture had changed. Before, the rock was coarse. Natural. Now, it felt smoothed. Like something had been running its hands over it. Repeatedly. Patiently. I turned back to the group. Eric was muttering to himself. Low. Repeating something. Julia had her head down, eyes closed. Owen stood in the center, motionless. And in that moment, I realized something I hadn't before. We were being listened to. Not watched. Not hunted. Just listened to. As if the cave wasn't empty. As if it was waiting. I volunteered to go first. It wasn't a heroic gesture, just practical. The opening was tight, barely wide enough for a person to slide through. One at a time. No room to turn. No way to back out once inside. Owen's lamp had caught the curve of the passage, and we all saw what it meant. A decision. Eric refused outright. Sat with his back to the wall, arms folded, muttering about dead ends and loops. Julia didn't speak at all. Just stared into the dark, her jaw clenched so tight her cheeks trembled. So I went. Dropped to my stomach. Shifted my pack to the front. Pressed forward. The stone pressed back. The tunnel narrowed after a few meters. My shoulders grazed both sides. Every movement required calculation, where to angle my foot, how to breathe shallow so my chest wouldn't stick. The only light came from my headlamp, casting long, quivering shadows ahead. I watched them crawl like insects. Something in the stone ticked. Just once. Like a fingernail against glass. I froze. Then moved again. No echo. No wind. No warmth. But the stone was no longer cold. It held a low, steady heat, like breath held too long. The passage twisted once, then dipped. I slid forward by inches, stone scraping against fabric and skin. The air tasted strange. Thin, dry, slightly metallic. I shifted again and felt my elbow brush something soft. I stopped. Lifted my head. Nothing there. I reached back with one hand. The passage was empty behind me. Still, I knew the texture. Fabric. A shirt, maybe. Or a scarf. But my scarf was folded in the chamber behind me. Wasn't it? I moved on. Time began to stretch. There was no way to gauge distance. My watch had stopped. My lamp, too, had dimmed. Still working, but the light now had a dull amber tinge, like an old bulb on its last hours. The tunnel leveled out. Then stopped. I found myself in a chamber. Small. Egg-shaped. Barely tall enough to kneel. The walls were smooth, unnaturally so. Not polished. Just worn. As if something had passed through this space 1,000 times. Maybe more. I turned slowly. There was no exit. Only the narrow crawlspace I'd entered through, and even that looked smaller now. Darker. I didn't panic. Instead, I turned off my lamp. Total darkness settled like cloth over my eyes. I waited. Counted silently to 30. Turned the light back on. Still alone. Except. I wasn't. The room felt full. Full in the way an empty room doesn't. Full like someone holding their breath just behind your shoulder. No sound. No movement. But presence. A thought, unspoken, you made it. I didn't answer. Because I wasn't sure if it was mine. The walls began to change. Not physically. Just, perceptually. Shapes emerged. Not carvings. Not art. Just impressions. The suggestion of faces, long and narrow, mouths open in mid-speech. Not screaming. Not gasping. Speaking. But the room was silent. I crawled forward, pressing my hand against one of them. Warm. I leaned closer. And the stone whispered. You left them. I jerked back. Nearly hit my head on the low ceiling. The whisper hadn't been loud. Barely a breath. But it hadn't come from the wall. It had come from inside my ear. Another whisper followed. You watched them die. I shook my head. No, I said, quietly. I didn't. I tried. No answer. Just silence. But now I could feel it behind me. The same weight I'd sensed in the other chamber. A fullness. An awareness. The chamber wanted something. Recognition, maybe. Guilt. I stood, crouched, really, and looked around. Slowly. Methodically. No passage. No cracks. No sign of movement. The tunnel I'd come through had gone dark. The light wouldn't reach it now. I sat down. Waited. Not because I wanted to. Because I didn't know what else to do. After some time, the light shifted. Not brighter. Just redder. The glow of my headlamp dimmed, then bloomed again, faint crimson now. Like firelight through closed eyelids. And then I heard it. The sound of fire. Soft at first. The crack of wood. The hiss of heat. Then screams. Familiar. I pressed my hands against my ears. But the stone was louder. I saw them again. Mason, pinned under the beam. Alvarez, shouting for help through black smoke. I remembered the crunch of my own legs under debris, the heat, the taste of burning insulation. How I tried to crawl toward them, dragging myself, coughing until my throat went raw. How I stopped. Because something in me, some small, selfish thing, had wanted to live more than it wanted to reach them. And the cave knew. It didn't accuse. It just remembered. I opened my eyes. The chamber was still. The fire gone. But in its place, hanging from the far wall, was my scarf. Not folded now. Hung. As if waiting to be picked up. Except I was wearing it again. Around my neck. Damp with sweat. I reached for the one on the wall. But my hand wouldn't move. Because I realized, with a deep, cold certainty, that if I touched it, I wouldn't come back. I turned. The tunnel was open again. Barely lit. No sound followed me as I crawled. The rock was colder now. The whispers had stopped. But I carried them with me. When I emerged into the larger chamber, Owen was gone. Julia was staring at the wall. Eric sat beside her, rocking slightly, eyes vacant. Neither of them looked at me. I didn't speak. Didn't ask where he went. Because I knew. We made our way back in silence. Mark was never found. No records. No footprints. Nothing. Just gone. I didn't go caving again. Didn't talk to Julia after that. Eric moved out of London a month later. Didn't leave a number. Sometimes, when I wake up before dawn, I feel the weight of the stone against my chest again. Not pain. Just pressure. A reminder. That I left something there. Or something followed me out.